Chris, we might be crazy, but let's just keep doing it because we're having fun.
Welcome to Healing Hearts, a podcast created by the Healing Center, voted Pittsburgh's best dispensary.
Welcome to the first edition of the Healing Hearts podcast. First, we'll be interviewing Chris Kohan and Jay Richards, founders and owners of the Healing Center. There's a lot of motivation there, but you guys had a lot of obstacles in front of you. Like you said, you started all the way back in 2010. Mm-hmm. You were knocking on political doors, and how many of those did not get open with a warm greeting?
Most of them slammed in our face.
Yeah, back then, the early years were just, if we could get 5 minutes with somebody, it was really amazing. And then they sent in their secretary to get rid of us, and
the gatekeeper.
There's a lot of meetings like that.
We had several where we sat in the waiting room and sat in the waiting room and sat in the waiting room, and then an hour later they're like, "Yeah, the senator's not going to be able to meet you today."
Yeah,
so, that had to be discouraging.
Yeah,
it is. It's everything has to start somewhere, and that's the way we looked at it at the beginning. Anything that you do never starts easy.
Right.
It's always very, very difficult. And I don't know that we knew this one was going to be quite as difficult as it became, but in the end, it makes it all the more, I think, refreshing and rewarding to us too.
But you guys went through so much to figure out one thing, and that really seems to be, how are we going to get this medicine to the people who need the benefit of it? Which sounds really simple from A to B, but you start down this path with the politicians. You've got kind of the societal propaganda of quite a few decades working against you as far as cannabis being the devil. I'm sure you guys had to educate a ton of people, a ton of politicians. Was there a lot of that?
Absolutely.
Get the ball moving?
And a lot of that, Chris knows the product very, very well, inside and out, down to the cannabinoid level. And when we got in front of politicians, we first had to explain to them that, we're serious business people, and we're here to help people. And then we got down onto on a level of, here's what cannabis can do. And then Chris, of course, would mostly reiterate some of the benefits of the cannabis plant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we would speak about cannabinoids and terpenes, which not a lot of people know about even now, which we're just really starting to educate patients and society about. But back then those were a foreign language. So I think, we had meetings with senators who would, we'd go through a whole meeting, and at the end they'd ask us, so is the child how are they going to use the bong? And you get a question like that, and it's like, okay, we better back up again and start over. And I think, that was part of the education process, just getting people to understand and treat it like a medicine. That was the most important thing, is, consider it like you would any other medicine. Right. In the end, we're a pharmacy. You work there, we're a pharmacy. We're run by pharmacists. We are a medical facility, and we're there to help people with their health.
And that's it's a far leap from the image that a lot of people have in their heads of what cannabis is and where it comes from and everything else. And, to the point that you see now every day in the dispensary, you can't tell us that it's not medicine. You just have to walk through that place on one day and see the patients in there.
Yeah, all you have to do is sit in the waiting room and talk to them.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and we all know that, and they are very welcoming with their stories. It's a passionate community.
Yeah,
and people share and they like to help each other. So it's really an amazing group of patients that we have.
The favorite story that I have, and I tell it all the time, is there was an older lady that was in our stores, and at that time Chris and I were on site and on hand quite a bit in the early first couple months, and she had a walker, and she walked up and said, "Oh, young man, are you one of the owners here?" And I said, "Yes, I am." She goes, "I just want to thank you." She goes, I was on 22 pills before coming to the Healing Center, and she's down to 2 pills a day. She was on 22 pills a day. Wow. So you got to ask yourself, who is prescribing this lady 22 pills a day?
Scary.
And what reminded me of, similar to my sister, the reason she got cancer is because she was on pills for so long, it just starts to tear your body apart.
Right.
Therefore, she ended up getting stomach cancer. Those pills get absorbed through your stomach, and I think that's one of the causes. And you got to look at, this lady's kidney and liver and stomach are probably just getting destroyed for 22 pills, and that's just obscene, and it shouldn't happen in this country.
That sounds irresponsible.
Well, we Mike, you and I talk about our marijuana moment. And I remember you telling me your story about the gentleman that came into you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you might even want to, I don't know if you want to share that
Yeah,
one. But
it was when we first opened the first store in Washington, and there was a gentleman who came in. I wish I could remember his name, but it was the first couple of weeks of the store open. Everything was exciting, and we were all still learning. And he sat down and he looked me dead in the eye, and with a smile on his face, he said, "Mike, I've got money in the bank. I've got a beautiful wife. We've been married for decades. We've got beautiful kids. I've got beautiful grandkids now, and I've got 6 months to live. How do I enjoy those 6 months?" And we sat there for an hour and a half with that gentleman, and we answered every question that he had, because that at that moment it feels, as I'm sure it does for all of us, it feels like a responsibility to help them.
Yeah, it gets very personal at that moment. Yeah, because you're in a serious situation with somebody who's got 6 months to live. Yeah, right, and that'll know until you're in that position. I was never in that position before. I can be honest, other than, family members or somebody who was going to pass, but just in a scenario where you have an opportunity to help somebody in their last months of their life, and that can never be taken lightly.
And to see a gentleman like that with such grace and such poise in the situation that he was in, that's something that
more than we had.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. He was, we were falling apart, and this guy's standing there, looking at us like nothing's wrong. But that's where we are now. And you guys went through a lot of obstacles, like we were talking about, to get there. You did a lot of educating with politicians, and then something kind of started to tip the iceberg, right? You had one senator call, and that kind of changed things, right?
Yeah, and we hung up on him.
Yeah,
because we thought it was one of our friends joking around with us.
He didn't think it was real.
No, didn't think it was real, and they called back and said, "Don't hang up, don't hang up."
Now that's we started to pick up a piece of legislation that was two senators out on the East were formed as an alliance, which made it very unique because one was Republican and one was a Democrat. One's very liberal, one's very conservative. And you don't get many pieces of legislation that come into Pennsylvania that way. Yeah. In fact, they refer to it as the most controversial, well-supported piece of legislation that has ever happened in Pennsylvania. So, and everyone refers to it that way because it had that kind of support. So Jay and I said, "Oh, look at this." We read through it and we said, "This sounds pretty good." So we start knocking on doors over on the western part of the state, pushing this bill. And, we converted or flipped, I should say, a particular Republican senator from Westmoreland County. And that's what prompted the call. Mm-hmm. It's like, if anybody could get Kimmy Ward to switch over, I need to talk to these guys. So the next thing you know, we are driving to Harrisburg to meet Senator Leach. And that in itself was very, if you remember, intimidating. Yeah, it was. Because we sat down in this big office in the Capitol. I mean, Senator Leach got a nice one. Right. Suddenly there's all these people around us. And it's like, okay, did we do something wrong? It's like, he's like, I'm meeting the governor in 20 minutes. He's like, what do you want to say to me? And it's like, well, he goes, why are you pushing my bill? It's not, and, we sat and just basically said, we really believe in medical cannabis. We're strong supporters on that side of the state. If you can use some help, we'd be happy to work together. And we formed a partnership that day with that group, and it kind of steamrolled into more partnerships.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
You guys really made an accomplishment there. You brought the Democrats and the Republicans together somewhere around an election year. I don't know how you pulled that off.
Well, I don't know. I don't know that was us, but yeah.
So after that, you guys kind of led into the campaign for compassion. That was kind of the next step in this whole journey, right?
Yeah. When we were going and having meetings in Harrisburg, you'd walk through the rotunda. Yeah. And in the rotunda, you'd see these bunch of moms sitting around or standing up and waving signs. I think at the time there was maybe 8 or 10 of them. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Chris and I are, the folks walking us through.
Bears, they're referred to as. Yeah.
We're like, who are these people and why are they so loud and it seems awful angry here? And they said, explained who they were. So we went in and had our meetings, and then we came back out and we introduced ourselves. And I kind of went from there, and then we had an event for them, and
we started doing things for them. We knew they'd sit there. Those parents were so dedicated.
Well, they're focused on their children.
Correct. And they couldn't get access to a politician, so they had to kind of grab them as they walked by. And so they would try to get them. So they would sit there whole 24/7. They just wait and wait and wait and wait and take turns.
They called it the still waiting room.
Yeah, the still waiting room.
Still waiting.
We're still waiting for you to hear us. And
this is a group of mothers who had children with
epilepsy.
Epilepsy?
Yeah, epileptic mothers. So Jay and I started sending them pizza and things like that, because we knew they were sitting there all day, and that's kind of the way it started. And we had an event for them, which we didn't really expect all that many people to attend. And surprisingly, a lot of politicians attended, and they finally got the chance to speak to them. And, Jay and I made the tough decision at the time to get a lobbyist, which for a couple guys that aren't wealthy guys, and, that's a very expensive undertaking. We decided that the only way these people were going to be heard was if somebody kind of bucked up a little bit and
kind of fighting on their behalf.
Yeah. So we hired a very prestigious lobbyist firm, SR Wojak and Associates here in Pennsylvania. And we had a meeting. I remember that meeting. I know Jay does, where we brought Lolly Bench in. She was the lead mama bear. And we had the folks from Wojak and us. And we said, here's you two meet, because you're now you're working for them. It was, here's work for the patients, get us a law passed that's patient centric.
Yeah, there was a lot of questions. That meeting was supposed to be a 30-minute meeting. It turned into an hour and a half, and then into a working lunch. And
wow.
There was probably ended up attending. The attendance was probably about 10 people.
Yeah.
And part of the questions really revolved around. Remember, at that time, cannabis was still scary.
Yeah.
So this was probably 2013, something like that, 2014, and still scary. They're a fairly significant law firm with a good reputation, lobbying firm with a good reputation. And they had to worry about their other clients and what would they think if they represented a marijuana business.
State police, run down a whole list of people that they represent on an everyday basis.
So that was part of the conversation, was educating them and telling them, look, here's what this is going to look like. This isn't a couple of potheads putting a head shop together and
selling dime bags
out of the back door. We're going to run a professional organization and a professional and hire professional people.
Fast forward to where we are now, and patients often compare our locations to an Apple store. I mean, it looks that nice and that welcoming.
Well, again, it's a pharmacy.
Yeah.
And that's what everyone wants to make it more than it really, really is.
It's a pharmacy with a cool vibe.
Yeah. Really. Yeah. Absolutely. So once you got that lobbyist, that's really when you're picking up a little momentum now. You've got the lobbyist.
Yeah, they really helped us.
That's what really started blowing the doors off of this, right?
Well, we wrote, several points that are actually in the law. I mean, we got them introduced through our lobbying firm and our other partner, John Lubomir, who's, a very talented attorney, accountant, and so very good at writing that kind of language. I would say we got to give John a shout out.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got time on his hands when he's sailing around the world in his boat.
Yeah. Exactly.
But that's 3 years. You guys, this wasn't a short-term thing for you guys. You guys spent 3 years paying a lobbyist with hope.
And a lot of trips back and forth to Harrisburg and Philadelphia.
Times? I don't know.
30, 40 times.
50, I don't know. It's, I think one time we joked it was like, if you count both ways, 60 something times. But, it's like, it was what it became. It became a passion. And I think for both of us, it was like, one time we just said, well, if it never ever did happen, I would have never got to go to the governor's mansion.
Yeah, we got invited. One of only like 40 people that got invited, and they didn't bring on medical cannabis applicants or owners. They brought on folks that were lobbying for the actual bill, and they were advocates. So
the people who were advocates who they felt were going to make the change.
So,
I guess.
So really, we were viewed as an advocate and not necessarily a dispensary.
Sure.
And we weren't advocating for our dispensary.
No.
We were advocating for the passing of a bill.
Right.
That's what we were advocating for.
A patient-centric system for Pennsylvania, seriously old Pennsylvanians.
I can't tell you how many times Chris and I were coming back from Harrisburg or Philly or Lancaster or somewhere else, and that lobbying bill was expensive.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I paid it 1 month. He paid it the next. I paid it the following month.
I tried to sneak one in on him. I could never sneak one in. How about you this month?
He's keeping track.
Check my records. But there were many times when we looked at each other and we said, is everybody talking to you and telling you you're crazy? Because they're telling me I'm crazy. Like, I mean, everybody, family, friends, you're wasting your money. You're wasting your time. It's never going to happen. Senators were telling us that.
This is Pennsylvania.
You guys
it's not even a state. It's a commonwealth.
Yeah.
You hear all these things.
So not only were we doing all those things, but at that time there was no, guarantee or even a wish list of, hey, we might even own a dispensary someday. That wasn't even on the table.
No. You're spending all this money and you had no certain future.
Nothing at the other end of the tunnel yet.
No.
You guys had to be close to giving up at one point. I mean,
I think we had some conversations, but I don't think we ever talked about quitting. I think we almost joked. The one time a conversation in the car was, Chris, we might be crazy, but let's just keep doing it because we're having fun.
Well, we had
worst case scenario, we meet a lot of cool people and we have some fun. And
what you have to remember is it failed 2 years in a row. I mean, we were so excited in 2014, right? It passes the Senate, and then the House never calls it to a vote. It gets blocked by Mike Turzai and the Republican crew. Never, ever, ever gets called for a vote. So then you go to 2015, boom, right off the bat, Senate passes it. We're like, yeah, this is it. This is the year. House does the same thing. And
we keep renewing our lobbying bill,
right?
Our lobbying invoice.
So at the end of 2015 is where we were after January 31st passed. You have to do it all over again. That's when we were driving home, and I think that was probably our low moment. And it's like, and then to what he just said is exactly right. We said, screw it. That's
we're in it.
We're going to keep going.
I looked at it like a card game at that point. I was pot committed.
Yeah, right. Emotionally, physically, our marriages were suffering. Yeah. Everything was going wrong. So we just figured, hell with it. Just throw all the cards in and go.
Yeah, exactly. So.
And Dave Reed, he was kind of the one who ushered in that change to get it on the floor of the House.
That was a meeting that we had in Indiana, and it turned out to be what was probably the most key one, because the only way it was going to make it to the floor of the House was if somebody powerful put it there. And you had Mike Turzai, who was not allowing that to happen at that time. And so here enters Dave Reed, who's in his position as minority House leader,
right?
Because Mike Turzai championed him to get him there. So, and then we're sitting with him, and he shares with us that, a staff member of his had one of their children was in a pilot program in Philadelphia and was seeing strong results from medical cannabis, and that her other child was going to need the same, and that he's strongly considering supporting this. And we were like, whoa, because that's for him, I give that man all the credit in the world, because, you're basically stepping out against your boss,
your peers.
Yeah,
he's the unsung hero in this whole thing, and nobody knows it. Nobody hears about him.
Yeah,
nobody hears about the fact that he had a lot of influence on getting this done.
Yeah,
you hear about the two senators that championed the bill, but it would have never been heard if this gentleman didn't step up to the plate.
Got on a committee that could call it for a vote. We knew if we got it for a vote, we could win,
right?
Because we had the support. We had met with everybody at that point in time. So it was, we got it to the floor, and then it passed not by a little. It was overwhelming. So
we were in the rotunda. We were up in the rafters holding hands with the Campaign for Compassion moms and some of the other people that have been there from the beginning.
Everybody's crying. It was just, it was at that point, it was just such a feeling of accomplishment. Mm-hmm. We looked at each other at the time and said, we got something done here, which is amazing. Might be the end for us.
Yes. Then we're like, and we're broke. Now what?
Made an opportunity for everybody else to win, right? Yeah.
Right. Exactly. But, we do have a lot of people who are one permits who come up to us and say, we understand that, we ought to say thank you, because some people actually do say that to you. And that always makes you feel good, because they know that you were there at the beginning, and we were the only people that paid for a lobbyist before the law was passed.
Wow. To pass the bill.
To pass the bill.
Everybody else showed up after.
They're paying for them to push themselves, getting ready for when a law comes, but people weren't paying for a law to get passed. Somebody had.
They were just waiting.
You guys made the real investment to make that movement happen.
Correct.
Very scary, Mike. Very scary.
I'm sure. It had to be terrifying.
Yeah,
it was.
But now we're here. We've got the 2 locations. We've got Monroeville. We've got Washington. Cranberry's coming within the next couple of months. I know Jay was just out on the site out there today.
Yeah, we're hoping that construction wraps up before the end of February. If our inspections go well, we could see our first patient before the end of February. If not, maybe a week or so into March. But I think pushing real hard for February.
Yeah. We're excited. I mean, Washington and Monroeville continue, I believe, to lead the state in lots of areas. Most importantly, and for me, it's always the medical care that they get, and we hear that very regularly, that people are getting really good care and good advice from the Healing Center. And, that's in the end for us. We see a lot of patients. We've seen, I guess, 16,000 or so patients through our doors. And most of them regularly come back. So, that's the real representation. I look at things from a perspective of where we're making everybody happy. And when you see that many people, it's hard to always make everybody happy, but we always like them to know that we're always trying. And, we address everybody's concerns.
From the time we started lobbying ourselves and then getting a lobbyist and then talking to all the people all the way through the process, the vernacular that we used every time in every conversation was we are patient-centric first, always about the patient. Our buildings are designed for the patient. Our hires of our employees are designed. Those hires are people that we look for that we know can interact and educate our patients. And our management team has a patient-centric focus, and it's a culture that we've developed throughout our company. And that's one of the things that he and I had set out from the very beginning to do.
Well, we had a vision for what they would look like, the places. Him and I would draw them for each other and send things back and forth. But I think a lot of people in the traditional cannabis space said, no, you don't want to do that. No, you don't want to do that.
Right.
You don't want to have partitions and that. And lo and behold, what does everybody comment about? We did them. Yeah. We separate people off and they love them. And now other dispensaries are opening using partitions.
It was common sense. Why would you want somebody?
Why you don't want privacy?
Yeah.
Right?
You have some pretty deep conversations with people.
Your gentleman that's talking about, I got 6 months to live and I've got cancer. He doesn't want the person next to him knowing that, I'm sure.
Yeah. And that's one of a million conversations that's happened.
And they told us, and consultants even told us, do not put partitions up. And we just thought it didn't make sense.
No.
And we feel we get a good feedback from that.
Well, I think you had to learn early on the difference between people who worked in a adult use space and people who were truly medical places.
Sure.
And we're a medical facility. I can't say that enough.
Right.
And that's what we want, the impression to be, that we lead the state in medical care in the cannabis world.
All of our managers are pharmacists.
Correct.
I mean, it's constant medically focused in there every day.
And they will be when we go to other locations, even in other states, they don't require to have a pharmacist. We will have a pharmacist on site.
Model.
So that's our business model. Yeah. So we are patient-centric medical care.
Right.
Okay. And I live with a pharmacist as well, and they can answer a lot of questions that you would never think of.
I always make my doctor mad when I say this, but pharmacists know more than doctors, and that always makes him really mad. But the reality is they know more especially about drugs,
drug interactions,
than any doctor that I know, because they have to. They have to know all interactions. They have to know everything that goes, back and forth. So, to me, my wife always calls and asks Mike when she's sick or something like that first before she asks our lead pharmacist. Before she asks the doctor.
I've seen our general manager and lead pharmacist Mike Butler examining somebody's foot before one of our employees in the office just to make sure he was okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the jack of all trades.
He takes care.
Yeah.
So moving forward, you kind of touch on another thing. We're looking into other states. Broadly, generally, what's next for us? What's next for the Healing Center in the community and other communities?
Well, we embrace the communities that we go into. And, so for us, if we're researching an area, the first thing we do is go meet all the folks there. So everyone from chiefs of police to mayors to the council to all that. And then we try to find the local organizations that are really good, strong, charitable organizations that we can partner with and help support. And that's kind of, what we like to do as a company. We like to embrace our areas and help people as much as we can.
And one thing we haven't touched on is that our facilities are incredibly safe.
Correct.
As well. All of our securities are former or active police or military. People kind of have that.
Well, you can build your place and make it like Fort Knox, like Jay did for us, or you can refab an old pizza shop or something like a lot of people in the state do.
Sure.
And in the big picture of things, we have license plate readers. We have all offsite locations. We have offsite parking. We have so many cameras, you can't count them all. And just our facilities are so incredibly safe. And that's the most important.
The one thing that separates us, and I don't know if Chris, you just said it or not, was a standalone building.
Yeah.
And having a standalone building and 360-degree surveillance and your own private parking is key. And I think our patients feel very safe entering and exiting our facility because they're constantly under surveillance. And routinely we have security outside assisting people to their cars or walking on busy days. They're helping direct traffic, et cetera. So as Chris said, our folks are, current or former police officers, and most of them, if not all of them, are veterans as well. Yeah. So we really try to help the vets in doing that, and we're big supporters of local law enforcement.
Yeah, it's just it's night and day when you look at some of the places in the state, and I think that plays into the whole experience for people when they come to a healing center.
Sure.
Yeah.
Feeling good when they're walking into that medical facility, that clean environment, with that helping, friendly face who has a ton of information about the cannabis products that you're thinking or wanting to try that day.
Yep.
And our patient care reps, our PCRs, they are on a first name basis with most of those 16,000 people that have come through our door. They know.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It is incredible.
Mike
amazes me.
Mike trains all of our PCRs, and we consider them to be the life's blood of our organization because they are the ones who have the direct contact most with all of our patients. So we get feedback, we get lots of information. So, they're a very special group.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a growing community, and I know we're all excited and happy to be part of it. And thank you, gentlemen, for fighting the good fight for the last 10 years to get us here. Somebody had to do it.
On a decade, yeah.
Yeah. You went through a lot, and now we're here, and everybody in the state owes you a bit of debt of gratitude.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
Humbling.
It is very humbling, and like we said, we take it very seriously.
So let's turn the vibe for a moment. As we're wrapping up here on our first episode of the Healing Hearts podcast. So this question was submitted from an outside guest. What strain of marijuana, if you had to be a strain of marijuana, would you be?
If I had to be a strain of marijuana, I would. Can I pick two?
I mean,
we could cross them for you.
I'm not. Yeah, right.
Somebody will breed that.
I'm not quite the connoisseur, but I like Jack Herer.
Okay, nice
and Girl Scout cookies. So
nice.
Always liked that from the time I tried that a few years ago, and it's a nice steady flow. So and it helps. I have some pain issues and some sleep issues, so it helps tremendously.
It's incredible.
Yeah. I'm an indica guy, so it's going to be purple in nature. So probably something grape. So like grape god bud, maybe.
Grape god bud. That's a good one.
It's good for my ego too. Probably most people would probably say that fits me.
You didn't hear that from me, Mike. Wink, wink. We've known each other a long time.
You guys would do this. Is there anything else you folks would like to tell the people of the Pittsburgh community about the Healing Center that maybe they're not aware of, might not think of, or might not know?
I don't know. I think that I'm not sure people know who we are now. I think Chris may be able to add to that, but I would just like to say thank you to the Pittsburgh community, really, with the bottom of my heart. I mean, they've really responded to us. We've tried to do our best for them, and I really thank the opportunity that they've given us.
Yeah, we are very appreciative of that, and I guess the best thing for all of them to know is we always want to hear. We want to hear from everyone. We want to hear from our patients. Everyone doesn't, and hopefully this podcast as it goes through will kind of clear up some of the misconceptions around our industry, and people will understand a little bit more about what we can do and what we cannot do. Right. I mean, I think, when you're the dispensary, you're the point of contact. So once somebody gets mad, we're taking the brunt of it. We take the happy of it too. We get all of it. So when you're that point, that's, again, what makes it all happen. Right. So we embrace it, and we want to hear from everybody. And from there, we will do our best always to try to make it everything that they can ever ask for in their experience.
Yeah, we do listen to our patients, and we have meetings weekly and talk about what's being said, good and bad.
Yeah.
So.
Well, if you have questions about the Healing Center, thehealingcenterusa.com is our website. Again, that's thehealingcenterusa.com. Chris Kohan, Jay Richards, owners of the Healing Center. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks.
All right,
Thanks,
you, Mike.
We appreciate it.
Healing Hearts is presented by the Healing Center, voted Pittsburgh's best dispensary. Healing Hearts is recorded at the Center for Media Innovation at Point Park University. More information is available at thehealingcenterusa.com.